Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls, bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people, you have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential reset of some of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or the purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is most relevant. And the most relevant piece of information from our point of view would be the potential window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We continue to believe that January 2021 is the most plausible date for a number of reasons. Now, I've gotten a lot of contacts in the last week about the date of January or the month of January 2021 because of the presidential election. And I understand this. And I'm going to explain to you what I think is going to occur. Now, there are a couple of options. First of all, with regard to the election itself, despite what you've heard in the media, Joe Biden is not the president-elect. Not a single state has certified their election. The Electoral College has not certified a winner, and legitimate concerns about election irregularities have been presented, at least to the American citizenry and very shortly to the courts. So let's look at the options. If Trump should prevail, then as far as I'm concerned, the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar would be a done deal because Donald Trump has said for years he wants a level playing field. He does not want countries to artificially devalue their currency to take advantage of international trade markets. So it's pretty clear what Trump has been doing. He's also been working very hard to neutralize Iran, which is necessary in order to liberate Iraq fully. Now, if Biden were to win, the reinstitution would probably still proceed because while the United States is an important player, there are a lot of other international organizations that want to get this done. And frankly, Joe Biden is much more interested in appeasing the international organizations than his own citizenry. That's my opinion. But even if Biden were to win, Donald Trump is still the president through January 20th of 2021. And the casual observance of the way this man is governed would tell you that if he felt that this needed to get done, and if he felt that it might be in jeopardy once Biden is inaugurated, I don't think he would hesitate to make sure that this happens. So I don't see the outcome of the election, however it goes, affecting the reinstitution of the dinar. Now, that being said, let's look at what's going on in Iraq itself. Now, the parliament recently confirmed that the government will need another 40 trillion dinar just to pay the salaries that need to be paid from September through December of this calendar year. The Al-Kazemi government is now attempting to borrow from the CBI 100 trillion dinar in order to pay salaries and to cover other expenses for the balance of this calendar year. Now, the dinar is basically worthless. It's even been further devalued against the dollar. So this would be a hyperinflationary act. On the other hand, it would even make the reinstitution of their currency more important. Now, in order to borrow this money, the Al-Kazemi government has a 100-day reform plan. It includes strictly monitoring all auctions. It includes confronting the militias that are still roaming around in Iraq. But then they're doing three other things which point, in my opinion, to the reinstitution. One is strict control of the traffic at the borders, to control the borders. Also, to fight corruption, and specifically, they detail the counterfeiting of the dinar. Now, these two things are important is because what they're pointing to is the deletion of the zeros. In other words, they're concerned at the border crossings that some of these officials are trying to ferret the provisional currency out of the country in anticipation of a reinstitution. And they also want to stop the massive counterfeiting of the provisional currency in anticipation of the reinstitution. And the deletion of the zeros is the critical step before they can finally reinstitute. Lastly, it's my belief that one of the reasons they have postponed the payment of salaries is because they know that a number of citizens have been hoarding the provisional currency for a variety of reasons. Some because they just have no understanding about what's going to happen. Some because the problems in the country in and of itself tend to make people want to hoard. If you'll remember when the COVID pandemic, quote unquote, started earlier this year, what did people do? They ran to Walmart and Costco and everyone else and hoarded toilet paper and any other, hand sanitizers, all kinds of things. This is what people do. So by postponing the payment of the salaries, by dragging that out, the hope was that that would compel these people to start spending the money that they had been hoarding. Again, all of this in anticipation of completing the project to delete the zeros. And once that project has been completed, then the reinstitution of the dinar is not only inevitable, it would be imminent. So the 100-day plan basically puts us in early January. That's what we're looking at. That being the case, nothing that I see on the horizon is going to stop the reinstitution in January. That's been the glide path, in our view, since spring of this year, and that's what everything's been moving toward. There had been some hope that they might jumpstart this a little earlier, but they've been methodically moving toward January, and that's where we are. So that's not that far out. We're talking just a couple of months. Now, that being the case, those of you that have not as yet gotten your affairs in order or may not understand what that involves, you're running out of time to do so. Most individuals that are holders of dinar and some of these other currencies are not wealthy, sophisticated investors. They're regular, hardworking Americans who, for the first time in their life, will have a substantial amount of money to manage, and it's going to literally come to them overnight. So to that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your dinar and other currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and some of these other currencies. So let's start with phase one, which is the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts. There is a very specific reason why we have established this package. Very simply, because it's the best asset protection available domestically in the United States. Now, there are other entities that individuals can establish to provide some level of asset protection. For example, individuals can establish LLCs and sub-S corporations, and they will provide some level of asset protection, but primarily by dividing business assets from personal assets. The problem here is that the possession of these currencies is a personal asset. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations owned in the majority by a single individual or closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So the LLC and sub-S corporation is not going to provide the privacy and asset protection you're going to need and want. Some individuals have established an entity referred to as a revocable trust, sometimes also referred to as a living or loving trust. And these trusts will exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and if properly structured, can substantially reduce and in some cases even eliminate the federal estate tax. But revocable or living or loving trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection. So they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established a single irrevocable trust, and that's going to provide more privacy and asset protection than the entities that I've just mentioned. However, there is an inherent flaw even in the single irrevocable trust, and it's this. If any asset that you possess should ever get involved in civil litigation, that would necessarily drag all of your other assets and net worth into that litigation as well, because they're all owned by that one single entity. The solution to protect your assets both pre- and post-RV is to establish a package of irrevocable trusts, and that package must be established prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other assets for a number of reasons. First, by establishing this package of trusts, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title, once they revalue, the IRS will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the precise time that these currencies have revalued, and there are many other things you'd much rather be devoting your time to. And lastly, the cost of a 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust. On the other hand, if your pre-RV asset protection trust package is in force, and you have assigned your currencies to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, that is important for a couple of reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if the taxable event of this revaluation were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package such as ours. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currency to family and friends in certain situations. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV U.S. dollar lump sum, you can give to them through our specially designed gift subtrust, which is part of our package. And because you're gifting through this subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. In addition, the language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you've created a sliding scale and you can gift to them the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And because you are in control of the money within this gift subtrust, you can manage, invest, and distribute this money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance. And the probate process could delay the transfer of that estate for years and in some cases even decades. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax. But the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number two. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title and to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the example I gave from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because his trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title and to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we have established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate sub-trust to be managed by your master trust, the initial trust you set up pre-RV to hold your assigned currencies. Now, how does this protect you in the future? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your sub-trusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that sub-trust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal persons or separate legal entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity that had nothing to do with the accident. So your package of trusts work very much the way a barge would work, a commercial barge, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trust prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. I'll just make mention of one of those benefits here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida for all of our trust holders. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have already expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even some of the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there. Now that you've acquired this wealth, you're going to need and want to have a clear understanding of some of the more sophisticated tax strategies to protect this wealth from unnecessary taxation. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets for a number of reasons after this revaluation. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So this is another reason to get money out of the banks and at work in other markets. Lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth out of financial markets and into tangible assets. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and is empowered to manage the sub-trusts, one optional gift sub-trust which can be converted to a standard sub-trust at any time, and 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold financial assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But nearly a decade ago, when we decided to work with Dinarians, we knew that that price tag was going to be unaffordable for many. So by simplifying that package and deferring the funding of the trust, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which is basically our out-of-pocket cost just to produce and deliver your trust to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place and their affairs in order pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of these currencies for all of the reasons that I've stated here. Now, we're going to go to a Q&A in just a moment. But before we do, and again for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you should seriously consider contacting us to get our initial no-obligation package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. Robert Bly is a known and recognized expert in the areas of estate planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for about a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. However, under our system of civil litigation, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are, of course, substantial investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now, societally in the aggregate, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts. And particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre and post-RV as we understand them. So again, thanks for taking the time to listen to this call. We're going to go to Q&A in just a moment. I suggest you have a pen and paper handy. I will give you our contact information. And if you're a newer caller, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need should you decide to proceed with the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, but it has a lot of information about us, about estate planning, about the currencies, all of our work post-RV to assist you. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We take no service calls on the Q&A. Our existing clients can contact us by phone or email if they have a service issue. And second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open up now. For some reason, I cannot open the Q&A. I have no idea why it will not let me open the Q&A. I'm going to try it one more time. In 10 years, that's never happened. I cannot open the Q&A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you our contact information, and then I'm going to have to call our tech guy and find out what the hell's going on with this. I'm going to try it one more time. Nope, it will not let me open the Q&A. So let me give you our contact information, and you can certainly contact me if you have a question. Our site is trustswithans.unlimitedllc.com. That's trustswithans.unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trustswithans.unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD Calls and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last number. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739394#. If you want to be included on our email list, you can go to Trusts Unlimited, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the Dinar, emails will probably go out on a weekly basis. Again, I apologize for not being able to open the Q&A. I have no idea why it will not allow me to open today, although I will try to resolve that as soon as we get off of this call. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. Of course, our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we will try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks again for listening to the call. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.